and it's never been seen before. I speak for all of Ed Video when I say it's been such an honor to have you here with us, Evan, over the past little while as you've been developing your practice in the studio. Thank you so much for all your hard work getting this workshop together. We've been so hyped about it for the past 2 weeks, yeah, we're happy to be a part of it. And thank you all for coming, and the board members as well for joining us tonight. So for those of you who don't know Evan Gordon, which many of you do, but Evan is a Guelph-based musician, producer, and multimedia artist. Gordon combines music, lighting, animation, and projection to create synchronized multimedia stage shows. His shows have been seen most recently at Kazoo Fest 2018 and Kazoo Spooktacular, and Gordon is the 2019 recipient of the Ed Video Media Arts Center Kenny Doren Award. So we'll get started. We're just going to do the workshop, have some fun, and then we're going to do a little intermission and we'll cut the cake. And then if you don't have your glasses already, we have complimentary Evan Gordon light shields, which are over there. We also have some earplugs for later. That's all over there. We have drinks in the beer fridge behind Elia there. So we have pop, water, beer. So help yourself throughout the workshop and whatever. So, all right.
Thanks,
Great. Thanks,
Evan. Welcome. I want to start by thanking back you and all the Ed Video staff for allowing this to happen. It's been such a great opportunity for me not only to prepare a workshop but to get to build this live show. Usually I would have to do this in my apartment or something, but to be able to come here and have the time and the assistance to build a live show. And thank you guys, Elia, Jordan, Scott, Liz, and Jaden, the co-op student. We were all working pretty hard the last couple weeks to bring this together. Okay, so I've never taught a workshop before, so I'll just take a second to get going, I guess, but it'll be good. Throughout any time, if you guys have any questions, please ask immediately, and just we should have more of a discussion because I might not be explaining something completely. We need to start with the icebreaker, right? That's how this is gonna go. I didn't think of a good icebreaker though, so unless you guys have a better idea, let's just go around, say everyone's names, and maybe what you do or what you're interested in taking out of this workshop, if anything. Let's start front row, left. Scott.
Oh. Okay.
Yo, you don't have to say your name because I just said it for you. You don't have to. Also, you don't have to stand up.
Okay. Thanks. Hi, my name is, and I work here, and I'm very interested in this tonight. The first time I saw Evan ever do this, I was totally amazed, and I wish more artists would utilize this technology in their work, as more musicians could too. And I'm really interested because I think of these lights that are LED powered as exactly the same as that screen that is also LED powered. So in my mind, there's really not a lot of difference. Yeah, so I think this is just like video too, and very exciting, and I can't wait. Thanks.
Thanks, Scott. Scott is the one initially you actually asked me about this, so I'm happy that you made it happen and that I can hopefully make your dreams come true of not only showing this stuff, but that everyone in town will be rocking light show. Next, please.
This is Edie, and I'm Jen, and we, with Scott, sometimes do visuals for music shows, and Edie makes animations in After Effects, and I'm an artist, and I'm really excited to learn more about how you do this.
Perfect. And you?
My name's Lenny, and I want to learn more about lighting and projection stuff to get better for shows, for doing shows.
Yeah, perfect. I really think you can get that rocking after this, and it'll be great. You got the lights, you have the stuff, just need the synchronization. We'll get you there. Next, please.
I'm Alex. I'm an artist, and I already do lots of projections and music, including like stuff that's MIDI synced. So I think this workshop's going to be perfect for me because I know absolutely nothing about DMX, and I'd love to learn how to do some light shows in amongst all of that other stuff.
Yeah, you're so close. We're gonna get you there.
I'll pass it on.
My name's Monica. I'm part of a project with Alex called Versa, and we do a lot of live visuals. And I'm excited to just learn more about lighting because projections, can provide a certain amount of lighting, but it's not the same as having the people on stage with you well lit, and to be able to synchronize that into what we're already doing is kind of the next logical step.
Totally. Great. Let's move to the back row here.
Linda, I do something called Art Moves, which is projection with dance and then video.
Oh yeah, I've
My
seen you
projection is
working on that in here. Yeah.
very
right,
crudely, so I'm hoping to advance what I have been doing.
Okay. Perfect.
Oh, all right. I'm.
Okay, well, yeah, this will apply.
Yeah,
as
so
well to
it's
that.
my first experience with you, Evan, so good luck. And
Thanks for coming.
thanks.
Hi, I'm Emily. I have a music project called Kazoo.
Oh yeah, I saw it on Saturday. Actually, not to single you out, but and talk to Scott, who had also seen you and recommended that you come here because that was such a good show, and I think this stuff could incorporate well into
Was that
it.
in Waterloo?
I was here, just around the corner at a
Oh yeah,
house
that was here, not Waterloo. Cool. Yeah.
that Lenny put on.
Yeah, I'm like mixing up all my shows.
Yeah. It happened.
Yeah, and I've been looking into kind of sprucing up the visual element of my stuff
Cool.
for a while. So it's cool. It's
Great.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thanks for coming. I know you guys, so that's everyone. Did that break the ice or make that? I feel better. It's good. Thank you. Okay, so I guess I want to just go over. So I'm sort of like I'm gonna talk about the lights, but that's gonna be last because I'm also gonna run down all the audio end of things and music end of things, and then also the visual rig I do as well in Resolume Arena. So, but the main part will be the lights. So I figure it's good to sort of, I guess what I wanted to do is since so I made this record that all these tunes are from last January, put it out around April, and then I had to figure out how to do it live, how to sort of like reverse engineer my record, which is an electronic record that I made kind of like with some of this stuff, but mostly in the computer. So I guess I want to take you guys through the whole journey of, it's been like a month to the day. I did 2 weeks ripping all the samples, making the music, and then adding the visual component, and then last week all the lights. So if I know the focus is lights, but I think sort of explaining the whole system will be helpful if you guys don't mind, and it might be of interest to anyone who makes electronic music as well. So yeah, let me tell you about my experience as an electronic musician. I mean, I come from a folk family, and I grew up playing folk music, and then I was a rocker too, but all the while I started like making techno music. I don't really listen to techno music at all, but when I was like around 14 or 15, I got a Apple II computer and a hardware sampler, a Roland S550. So it's like a sampler that you load in floppy disks into, and no idea how to use it, but I learned and I really got into it. It was sort of like my playing video games kind of, you know? So, and I would just sort of like make I would use all the discs that came with it, which was like what someone else made. Then I would start making my own samples, and then just I started to learn that system, like programming. So I don't when I'm making electronic music, I'm rarely ever playing anything. It's just like step entry. So it's like anyway. So I started that, and it kind of took the back seat when I was playing rock music and folk music, but then later in the past sort of decade, it kind of, the two worlds started to come together with the bands I played in. Islands and The Magic, we made records that were more like electronic based, and then when it came to doing that live, I was sort of responsible for bringing in those elements, taking the electronic elements from the record and then making them work live on the stage. So that, and then I never really made my own stuff or played electronic shows before, and I still kind of haven't. I've done a bit, but I made this will be my third electronic record. So the first one was called Shed. This is called SLEDD. It was called Shed, and I made it. I was living in LA, touring a lot, and it was the first time I didn't have like instruments with me. I just had my laptop and this one synth, the Dave Smith Tetra. So I found myself just in my free time making like techno music with those two things, the drums on here and then the synth sounds on here. So I made one record from that, and then a couple years later made another record that was sort of more, that one was instrumental. Then I brought in elements of, as you'll see later, because I can't sing at all, but I use vocoder. So, and then just last year I made this third record. So for Shed, the second record, I played shows with my brother assisting me, and so he was able to take some of the instruments over, but this is the first time I've really had to do it all by myself. So as we'll go over, I'll explain like how I brought all the elements together to turn the album, not like note for note, but basically bring it from the computer into here. And then, I wanted to say a note about that, because a lot of people are using Ableton, right, and computers, and I'm not, for some reason I can't do that, but it's not like I'm against it, and I actually think it's way better to use a computer. I think it's more like, because my computer's always sucked, that I am worried about it breaking down or something, like live, like it's not reliable. So then I end up using all hardware, all this stuff on the table, fueled by this MPC sampler. But I was thinking about it when I was getting ready to talk about this workshop, like there's so many limitations to this that I don't know now if it's like what's better or what's not. But either way, all I'll say about that is it's not an aesthetic thing. It should be purely technical, whatever works for you and whatever you can get done. So my route, which I'll show you, and I hope it's not redundant, I guess, if everyone's using computers for me to teach how to not use a computer. But I think it's the same, the same principles as sampling, things like that. But so I guess let's get into it, and I'll run down all the stuff and sort of take you from, if you guys are game, how I made, like rip the record basically into all this stuff. So let me begin. Ilya, if you can bring up the screen. Yeah. So my record I made in Logic 9, which is for people who haven't used it, it's like sort of it comes with Apple. It's like one of the major like audio music workstations, I guess, but this is an old version that it came on my computer, and I mix on Logic 10, but I use this for programming still. I don't know. I just know it. So where my journey starts is I'll take the session. This is like a sort of a mutilated session of my original, basically like the record, the same session I made the record on, and then the idea is to oh yeah, I don't know if I should play stuff or I'll just keep talking for a minute. So because this probably just looks crazy right now, I'll try to clarify it in a second. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, so this is so let me try to explain how I made the record. I was not smart when I made my record. I was just throwing down ideas like crazy and not really thinking about them being songs or anything. I was just sort of like trying stuff. So as a result, I didn't save any patches of any of the synths, sounds, or anything. I just like recorded them audio into the computer, but I do have all the, or most of the note information, which is all these green blobs you see. So the blue blobs are all sort of the edited final versions of all the multi-tracks of the songs. Let's see if we can just get this going now so we can hear what this is. But as you can see, there's like vape. Oh yeah, that's what I call the singing. It stands for voice activated pitch encoder in my mind. So I call it vape because it's funny, but that's like the vocoder track. So then we've got drum machine, kick drum, more drums, melody, bell sound, pads, push, don't really know what that is, donk. If you know techno music, that's like the thing that is on the opposite of the kick drum that goes like donk. I should just play it, I guess. Let me see if, oh yeah, okay. So now we're listening to like this tune called Hole in the Wall, with most of the tracks. It's not mixed really, it's just like all the stems, right? So, anyway, so then the next step is to get that song into the sampler, and the crazy thing is the sampler has 16 megabytes of data per song, I guess, like at one time. I can load more from the card. So if you think of that, that's like I couldn't just play this whole song even into it at all. So I need to be strategic and then think of like what either loops to use or like what repeats, sort of like try to cram all this in there. But I have oh yeah, am I being should I get more basic about like what a sampler even is or something, or I'll start to show you the functions of the MPC in a minute, but I just don't want to like get past myself, I guess, here. But what was I saying? Oh yeah, so but the other thing is I have all these green blobs are all the note information for these songs. So I can actually, they're just like data basically. And we'll get into this because this is the same system I use to program the lights. So these are all like the beats and all the notes. This is the drums we're looking at right now. So you see there's like, I wonder if I can make them sound. It might be like muted or something. Anyway, these are all the drums. So good thing I don't have to repeat the, like I don't have to replay or even cut loops of the drums. All I do is record this in this whole thing, which is all the drum information for the whole song, into the sampler. Then I record just each sound, like each after mixing, like the kick and the snare, whatever, all the different drums. I'll record and then bring them into the sampler. Then it's sort of like coming back together. So then all these, I'll show you how to do this after. Is all these will trigger their respective sounds. So basically, it sounds identical to the album, but instead of playing like a long clip, it's just playing like each drum hit. So that's really effective. Then most of the other stuff I can send out to the synth, or I've got another sound module here, so that takes some of the weight off that, and then all the rest I'll cut into like 1 bar loops or however, and then I'll show you that, I guess. Now I'll show you the MPC. So if we can, Elia, switch to the desktop here. I don't know if we can quite see. Oh yeah, we can see the screen of the MPC. Great. So I'm going to load up this same song in the MPC, and then just sort of show you how it's done. You know, this is actually Lenny gave this to me on a long-term loan with the agreement that I would, when you play a show, I will provide the MPC programming for you. And it's this is like sort of the most, I'd say like trustworthy version of the MPC, which stands for MIDI Production Center. So it's a sampler, but it also is like it's basically like a computer, like a brain. So it's gonna not only have within it the samples of the sounds, also trigger all the other stuff, but it also triggers all the lights and the projections, so which we're gonna all get to. But for all your guys' purposes who want to do this, we'll sort of go parallel, because you can do this all in Ableton too. Like you don't. So along the way, when I'm talking about all the programming of the lights and stuff, like it's because I actually program the lights in Logic, then rip them into the sampler. You'll be able to do that all within your or Ableton or whatever program you're using. So I'm sort of the a rarity, I guess, that I don't use the computer live, but other than for the visuals, but I can, as I'll show you later, I just have to have the lid closed and this sends all the information out. So anyway, let's go through this. So this is the MPC. A classic feature of the older MPCs is that the buttons are like super hard to push. So the main one is, anyway, so let's go through and I'll show you just all the different tracks, and I guess I should be more basic and tell you sort of how it goes. So luckily this version you can load the samples off of USB, so I can make all the samples 16-bit. Like I usually do the mono because they're smaller, because if I'm trying to get like hit the 16 megabyte target, it's easier that way. And then so you rip them into here, and then you make like this is called a program. So this is electric drums, and then I have them all in here. So snare, what is this? Ride, clap. This song has a lot of ride cymbals, which is sort of problematic because another thing is the MPC has 64 notes at a time maximum, which you think is a lot, but it's really not. Once we get the lights going, it's possible that we're gonna send over 64 messages at once, and then it'll cut out samples like sort of randomly. So that's another crazy limitation that I'm working with. But in a way, it's good to work with limitations because I was able to simplify my record and not like the record has tons of different layers, and I was able to sort of clarify it and bring it into one or two layers. So anyway, we got the bunch of ride cymbals. So these are all just the individual drum hits, and then that's what I was telling you about earlier. Then I send all the MIDI data to that, and we'll then it's just like playing the beat from there, which is let me solo that. So these aren't like loops, they're just like individual hits being triggered, exactly like on my record. Then, what else do we got? I think this is just another drum kit maybe that comes in later. This is like, oh yeah, this is more like a conventional sounding drum kit. So we've got all the snares, whatnot. What's the next track? The dongs. Oh yeah, so this is a loop, right? Of that. Then all the rest is just every note. I just sampled each one, even though I could have pitched each note, but I just like did each donk, and then let's hear how that sounds like if we scroll forward. So then I had to reprogram, I had to make a new program for that to, because on the record it's like one thing, I had to hack it out, but then, so then you hear the donk there. And so yeah, it's also weird, I guess, that I don't use the pads at all, or like really even play them. I do sometimes in the set, but it's all just sort of like, this is sort of just like the storage unit for all the sounds. Then here we have some loops. So I'm able to get about like 3 or 4 4-bar loops per song. What else do we have? I guess that's it. Oh yeah, this one, I'll talk about this in a second, but this station I call the sidechain station we'll get to, and it is sending out of here, out of a separate output, just like every kick drum beat, it sends a trigger so that, and when I illustrate it, you'll see, so that it kicks the compressor in and makes that like EDM like sucking sound, you know, that's just like, I'm getting ahead of myself, but I'll show you that. Then all these go out to the Tetra, which is a analog synth, which I'm also gonna describe in a minute. So those are all like this is all sending out node information. It's not audio to the two things. So the Tetra here, and then this like sound module, which basically just has like string and brass sound. So chords, which is good because since the sampling memory is so limited on this, to be able to have chords out of the box is huge for me. Vape, we've got it. This is the melody which I send into the vocal effects processor, but I'll tell you about that in a second. And then this is where I do play the pads at the end of this tune. So those are just sampled from the record. Then we've got more Tetra stuff. Oh yeah, these are just some more samples that I crammed in there. So anyway, if that makes sense, does the MPC make sense to you guys then? It's like both this is a sequencer, so it basically is like automating my whole set. And then, but it also stores all those samples that I played for you. So it's playing them internally, but it's also sending out here. And as you'll see once we get into the lights and projections, it's like sending all those cues as well, right? So, and then I do some programming right within the MPC, but mostly I use the Logic, I guess because I already made them the record in Logic, so it's way easier to send it out than like redo anything. Okay, so let's go over the different things on my table here, because I touched on them, but we should really get into them. So let's start with the sidechain station, which I'm particularly excited about because it's a you'll hear in a minute. It's like a big feature of electronic music, which I admit I'm like not a guy who listens to a lot of that, or like which is kind of funny that I'm making it. But that's something that I was like, the first time I heard this sound, I was like, how are they making that sound? And it's the sound of like I guess I can just like hope to play it for you, that sound. I don't know if this song actually has it, or if it just has a piano sound. So let me load up a real side chaining one. Oh yeah, so because of the small sample size between each song, I have to load a new project, as you'll see I'm doing here. But they're all kind of like the same thing. Okay, so pads is what I called all the side chaining. I really hope one's coming up here. It's hard to tell. It might start in a little bit. Oh yeah, but another thing which I'll get into the program changes later is like I also program this sends all the program changes out to these synths, so if I don't start at the start, it's gonna play like the wrong sound. So we'll just have to run this for a second and wait for it, and then I'll solo the thing as it starts. Oh no, we're giving away the light show too, I guess, because it's on, but that's fine. You're gonna get a sneak peek of it's coming. I think like the next bar, the side chaining should kick in. So just rock out for a minute. I really hope so. This is a slow build, I guess. Okay, yeah, it's coming now. Oh yeah. Where'd it go? Oh, then it stopped again at exactly that bar. Well, let me, sorry about that, guys. I'll go to a song that I know definitely starts with a strong side chaining. Oh yeah, why do we call it side chaining? You might be wondering. So it's a compressor, which what a compressor most simply does is it's like basically like pulling down a fader to turn the volume down, but it does it reactively to the sound. So normally a compressor would when a signal goes above a certain threshold, it's gonna pull it down by a certain amount. But when we sidechain something, it's got an input into it where I guess you can't see the front of this. Maybe I'll pop it up a little. Is that working? Okay. Put my light shields over it a little bit. But I'll tell you what these knobs do. Anyway, so we're instead of the signal going into it affecting whether it pulls down the volume, I'm sending a kick drum out to it. So every time the kick drum hits, it's pulling the volume basically all the way down, and we're finally going to hear what this sounds like, hopefully. So we've got pad. Okay. Okay, now you can hear it, right? If I solo it, I was just realizing it's not going to be sidechaining because it, oh yeah, that works. Can solo both these. No, that does not work. Cause it's sending, when I soloed it, I'll just have to like turn down some of the stuff, I guess. So, oh yeah, here we go. Do you hear that sucking sound? So if I bypass it, it's just like a static, really bad trumpet sound, right? So then now all of a sudden it's like rhythmic and like going in time. So this was huge because I did all this in the computer making the record, but I wanted to make it happen live, you know? So this is a pretty simple way. You can use any compressor. I was fortunate enough to get one that's very tiny called the Nano compressor, but they make a lot of pretty affordable compressors if you ever want to do that. So, oh yeah, so then as part of the sidechain station, oh yeah, so that I should go over the functions of the compressor in case you ever want to set this up. So we're just like, this is the ratio, which is like the amount that it's compressing, I guess, the number of times it's lowering the volume. And then this is the threshold, which sort of doesn't matter because we're using the sidechain. So anyway, these are just maxed out, like super maxed out. Then with the attack and the release is where we can control the sort of speed of the side chaining. But since I'm doing the live show, I kind of just try to set it like, I hope I can remember where it was set. Like just kind of like general. It's not like exactly in the beat, but this you can sort of fine tune it if you want that suctioning in your music to happen at a certain you know, with a certain groove, I guess, a certain feel. You can sort of fine tune that. Anyway, so my friend just, I was sort of asked around, I was like, does anyone have a sound module that I can use? And my friend Andrew lent me, or sort of gave me this one he pulled out of a bin, basically. It was like, I don't know what this does. And it doesn't sound very good. So I didn't actually, like, I don't really have any money to buy gear, but I did buy two things for this set. I bought this mixer, and then I bought this reverb pedal, which is huge for the these pad sounds. Like, I'll show you the difference. Is like, now it's like big and lush, right? Like as much as I can get it compared to this sort of like, oh yeah, and this is a string sound too. So, you know, it's more of like a usable, like realistic sounding techno sound than just this sort of like thin thing. And it's stereo too. So this is good. This is like, and then in addition, the, on the mixer, the mutes I have, instead of muting, when I hit this mixer, it actually sends out to the side chainer as well. So I can send these sequences out through it, which is really huge, because without it, they sound like this. And I'll go over the sequencer in a second, but then when you're in here, we're just like, oh, that was like a part of the song where it was supposed to do that. But anyway, so now all the sequences are like rocking in time too. So anyway, this is it was a big part of this record I made because I was like inspired by that I don't even know if it's popular anymore in techno because I don't listen to it, but that like suctioning sound. So this is the sidechain station. And that's pretty much all there is to it. Then I send program changes out to the sound module, and I basically can use like brass, strings, or piano. Say what?
So that's not its own sound, that's a thing you do to the sound.
A program change.
Okay.
Or what sorry, what is the thing? Oh yeah, no, that's not it. So the sound on its own is just like basically sounds like a keyboard that you would get like at a Value Village or something.
Okay.
And then all that stuff is something that I'm doing to it with these other components to make sort of, but for the purposes of my set, it's kind of like one sound. So it's like a lot to make that one sound because it's like three things, but it fits. So, oh yeah, the other thing I didn't say is one of the goals when I started out to do this project is that I want to be able to, because I haven't done this show live, I want to be able to pack it up into a rolling suitcase and just be able to go anywhere and do a show, and then I think I'm there. Like I got it down to this. I know it would be way easier if it was just like a computer, but it's good to have these things to touch, and I feel like the sounds are maybe a little bit fuller because of it. But the thing I didn't get beyond was that there's so many wires that it's gonna take me like an hour to set up every show because there's like a million wires. But maybe that's sort of the next phase if I start touring to get those down. Anyway, let me move through this because I know that you're all itching to get to some lights and visual stuff. But all this music stuff is so boring. But I wanted to for this workshop just sort of like explain the full deal so you know everything. So this Dave Smith Tetra, they actually stopped making it like maybe 5 years ago, but it's sort of like the best synth that I've ever used. Not in the way that it's the best sounding synth, but it's like, since it's this big, its functions are like so expansive, and I'm basically like I use it for everything because I can make, and I've sort of mastered it, I guess. So I can make like any sound pretty much from it. And another big feature of it is it has a built-in sequencer, which a sequencer is like this is a sequencer, so it as well. So it's like it's triggering all the notes within itself. So you can make all those like rhythmic loops that you'll hear a lot in the set that are like well, I was just playing one, I guess. Or it comes in a bit, I guess. But this stuff, right? Like all that rhythmic stuff is happening within here. It's I'm just sending out like the note information, and then it's happening in here. So if you'll care to indulge me, I don't know if you, oh yeah, you can even see these functions. So there is a computer program that can make these patches, but I'm just like, even though it's kind of crazy, I just like scroll through all these menus, and I think that's why maybe this wasn't that popular as synth, because it's not like it's not really that easy to access all the functions. But anyway, so we've got like all the same features you would have on an analog synth, all buried within the menu, blah 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 blah, and then you so it's got like tons of stuff, which is great. And then at the end we hit the sequencer, so that looks like I don't know if you can, if my head's in the way, but anyway, it looks kind of like this. So it's just like there's 16 steps, and well, that's crazy because it's like backwards. where my finger's wagging. But anyway, there's so there's 16 steps, and then you set the value for that. So basically, these patterns are just either off or on in creating a rhythm that way. The other thing I'll tell you about this is that so I split it in half. It has two. It's one synth. It has 4 voices, right? So, but it can split in half. So I use the top 2. So that's 2 notes are doing the sequences, and then the bottom 2, another 2 notes, I fuse together as one note, and they're doing all the melodies that I play on the keyboard. So anyway, it's pretty sweet that within one small unit, all analog. Well, it's digitally controlled, but all the things are analog. I can have real live synth sounds, not coming from a computer. And also, a big thing for me is when I'm doing a show, I don't want to, like, I've had analog synths before, but I cannot I don't have the patience to like set them up between the songs. But this stores the patches, so I have and I'm changing patches on this from the MPC maybe 8 times a song. They're changing all over the place. So that's that. What is left? Oh yeah. So TC Helicon. You use this same sort of system for your show, right?
Yeah, it's a different.
But it's like newer or something. But it's the same thing because I noticed you were playing.
I think that one has a bit more. Does that have a vocoder in it?
Yeah.
Oh,
So.
yeah, so mine has. It's like a little yellow. It's called the Perform VE.
Okay.
I don't think it has as many.
Stuff, but I just noticed that you were controlling. You were playing the keyboard, and then that was spitting out note information into that. So I do the same thing. So this is pretty wild because I can't sing. This system allows me. It's basically like a enhanced auto tune where I can send all the notes of the melody from the sampler. I don't even play them. I send them out into here, and then I just have to talk. Like, I do not have to hit a note, and then it follows the melody. I'll show you that right now. It's like the best technology for people who can't sing, like me. Let me solo it up, I guess. Or no, I need to hear it a bit. I was so all night, staring at the window, lost in the city light. I was thinking. So even if I try to hit the wrong note, it's still gonna go. Only when the note's happening. So I have to do the notes in time, I guess. Oh, but other than that, it's it's basically like lip syncing, but not, I guess. So it's pretty amazing, and then it can play. It's polyphonic, so it can play as you'll hear. Like I'll save it for the set to really you'll hear it, but it plays like multiple notes, so I can have like a whole chorus going on. So that's has been a really sweet enhancement to my set because I used to have a more conventional vocoder, which like I'm playing a synth and then singing along. But this is this is amazing. And then it also has like all the multi effects in it. And then again, I changed the patches. So for different parts of the song, I can have like. This part has reverb, this part has delay. I can control that all from here. And then, one step beyond that, we've almost run down all the audio stuff, is, so when I got this, and when I was making the record, I started sending out the synth into it to use just for the effects. Then one day by accident, this was like one of these happy accidents, I had the auto-tune on, and then it sounded a little bit weird, and then I started to make it sound weird on purpose by how do I explain this? So since the auto-tune is designed for a human voice, which is just one note, like I can't do two notes at once. But then this can send out two notes at once, and it sort of like confuses the auto-tune because it's like, what is happening? There's two notes, and it forces them like into one. So subsequently, all the lead melodies on my record are made using that sound, which I should try to find where that's coming in the song, which is kind of I should have like written down the bars of, I guess, of where this is happening, but we'll hear it in a second come up because it already happened. So the other thing is, since it's using the same thing, me singing and the synth, it's I make like a blank patch for when I'm not singing on the synth, so it doesn't make any sound. Let me just backtrack a bit, please. It'll come up like eventually. I didn't plan the sampler stuff to demonstrate, I guess, because a big part of it is it kind of has to play at the start because that's where all the programs happen. So just grab a Maximum Ice, and that's the name of my record. So that's why Jordan got some ice. And then we'll wait till this synth patch comes live.
Do you need a beer?
No, I'm good. I don't drink myself. I got ginger ale. Any minute this patch should be coming up. Ideally. I don't really know why it wasn't hitting. Let me go to the end. Or think of actually, if I just think of a better tune that I just really want to show you guys this patch, because it's kind of cool. It's crazy. It's like hard to control, but the more out of tune this synth is that I send it into the auto tune, the crazier it sounds, kind of. Here it's gonna be happening. So right now I have the keyboard is controlling the melody of the auto tune, but it's also controlling the synth at the same time. So here we go. So it's kind of like I'll play you without the auto tune. It's just like a super normal sound. Do you guys hear that? And then it just kind of like it's sort of like T-Pain's the synth sound, I guess, right? Like so anyway, it was kind of a challenge to bring that into live, because on the record I could mess around with that more, but I've got it down, as you'll see throughout the set. Now I'm starting to panic because I'm like been showing you guys, but I've been like just sort of randomly changing all the settings on the mixer and stuff, and then when I go to do the show, I don't know if it's gonna be right, but that's fine.
Evan, I'm not sure if this is like a premature question or not.
No,
You're getting to this already.
Please.
But how do you decide which notes you want to trigger to which lights? Like how did you go through that process? Oh yeah, so we'll get to that, but I just kind of you think like a kick, the strong rhythm ones, like a kick and snare would be like this big blaster right here is mostly kick. Then these lighting bars, if you think of them as being like sort of like a sequencer, so things that are going like do 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 do, they can go like back and forth, and then sort of as I fire them up, different things, but each one is sort of
as you'll see, going to be controlling like a component of the thing. So I decided partially in advance, but partially as I was like programming to see like, oh, that looks good with that. Oh yeah, and so again, we'll get to that in a minute. But the other thing to know about this is like we're using all stuff other than a couple things that I own and one fixture we borrowed from Lenny. It's all from Long and McQuaid. So if you're like wanting to rock a show, you can. It's doable, you know. It's like you can rent that stuff. You could rent it for like one day to program it, then just like rent it again, and it should like all work or something. So, and I'm gonna make my equipment, which again I'm sorry, I have one other thing to show you before the lights, which is the visuals rig. But all my lighting stuff, which is the main thing, the MIDI to DMX bridge, and then I have two dimmer packs that one drives light fixtures and one drives LED strips. They're going to be available to any Ed Video member to use for their performance, as long as I don't have a gig, which it's looking like I probably won't ever. Okay, so that's that. Are you guys satisfied, especially because you came here to learn about lights, with the rig rundown of my live electronic setup?
I have, before we move on from
Yeah,
sound, I just was
please.
wondering what's coming out of the MIDI to the Nano. Is that where you're getting the sucky sound?
Yeah.
Is that automated with the MIDI for each note, or do you have to time it? Is it more like just coming through as a sound, like as audio?
Yeah, it's audio. So it's the one thing. It's like it would accept like actually like a voltage like you work with too, like gate, but it also just like any loud sound. So I just send the kick drum out to it. But sometimes I made another program that just runs the whole song that just has it on every beat. So,
okay.
But other things could generate a gate, like other synths or drum machines as well. So, but you can also, so like in audio, because I mix records, that's what I do for my job. We use a sidechain to like, so you could send the vocal out through it, and then it will drop the track down every time the vocal hits, so sort of automatically, so you can like, instead of turning the vocal up, it's sort of pulling that down. So it accepts like any audio signal, but for this purpose, I was actually thinking about that. I was like, is there one that will, a compressor that would take MIDI, which would be pretty sick, because then I could actually control the release and stuff through MIDI too, but they're sort of like weird like 90s things that are hard to find, I guess. So, but yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah,
The
please.
notes that you send to the voice live
from
the sampler,
Yeah.
are they audio or are they MIDI notes?
They're MIDI notes, yeah.
Cool.
So it it has a mode where it has two modes, so it would do sort of conventional auto tune, but it also has a mode where two modes actually. One where it will sort of infer the chords that you're playing and pick harmonies around that, but then it has another one that just whatever MIDI note you're sending it
Cool.
does that. So it's like pretty cool idea for because you can play it live or you can send it in. Yeah. Okay, so if you guys are satisfied, we'll move on to the next component, which is the projections, so like I know that you guys, that's your thing. You guys all, or not all, but a lot of people are doing this already, like using this program called Resolume Arena. But so I won't go into it too much, but I'll show you what I use it for. But anyway, Resolume Arena is like a really, really good program. Actually, it would be good at your church too, because it's basically like a open book program that you can trigger images and videos. by many different means. So either, in my case, I'm using MIDI, but you can use the keyboard itself, or you can use like audio triggers, or you can use tons of stuff. So let's pull that up, and then I'll tell you what I use it for in this set, which is like only basically one specific thing, which is to oh yeah, I'm gonna boot her up here. So every time I play a melody in my set, it is going to trigger an animation as if it's like I'm playing a keyboard, right? Does that make sense? Like I'm playing like a visual keyboard. And then that's really, other than a couple times, that's like all I'm using it for. Because I still, I wanted to do both. Like not just use, like I really like the visuals, but I didn't want to make it heavy on the visuals because there's the light show, right? So, and a huge thing is Ed Video has allowed me to use this giant TV, which, as you'll see in the show, is so different than using a projector because it's not washing out the lights, right? It's like, so I would recommend if you're mixing both and you're in a small space, try to use a TV or use like a couple different TVs rather than having like a projector washing and then having the lights go. But it also, they do work together, but projectors are like very bright. So I went for, in this set, I went for just like very simple images and against a black background. Okay, so you can see it on the monitor there, and I'll in a second I'll bring it up so you can see it in big, but basically that's what it's like, right? So very simple animations that are going to trigger when I hit the note. But there's a lot of catches to this because I didn't want to make a whole keyboard's worth of notes for each patch, so I only programmed the notes that are in the melody for each song that I use. So this isn't actually the right song, but anyway, I'll just quickly take you guys through first of all how I made these images and then how to like load them into Arena. And I believe, tell me if I'm wrong, that Ed Video might be able to make a oh, could I have some candy when you get a chance? Maybe. I'm watching you guys eat it. I'm like, oh my god, thank you. Yes, thanks. That you might be able to hook people up with Arena or something, or point them in the right direction. Thank you. Okay, so yeah, so because this is a program that I know you guys already use it, but it, like anyone, this is like the easiest way to get something visual going for your show. And I use it in a totally specific way. Anyway, I'll just so let me show you quickly. I'll just blast through all the different patches for each song that I have, and then I'm gonna go into Photoshop and show you how I make these, and then I'll show you how to set up the project, I guess. So so this is yeah, so this is just basically like can you, oh yeah, I'll point you guys to, until I bring it up big screen, just look at that output monitor right there, and that's where these animations will be appearing. See that? So this is just like a triangle, but it's not just a triangle because it actually is an animation that I made in Photoshop that goes from big to small. And then here we've got like a You know, I should just keep. I should just like. No, I'm trying to think of a way that, because I'm only using one screen right now because this is mirrored. I can't really show you it other than in that small window, but I can show you later. Anyway, so this is just like a thing that goes, a bar that goes like an arpeggiator type thing. Oh yeah, this is like a little archway keyboard so that see when I play the notes, it's just like a little ball. It's not an animation, it's just like a little ball that plays in each one of the holes of the note. Right? So yeah, the drawback to this is like you kind of need a super fast computer or else there's a lag. So that's why I'm making them, or if you're playing it, if you're trying to play the melody, that's what I've encountered. So I made the most simple animations, and some of them are just still images, and they're faster, right? So, here, oh yeah, this one is pretty cool. It's like a, I should try to get it going up full screen. Oh yeah. So just like there's all these tubes, and then every time I hit the key, these things go, these little balls come out, right? And then also these yellow lasers can blast out of the tubes as well. Show you a couple more. Anyway, so this is something that I wanted to, like instead of having the projections be like full blast, like full screen like images, they're just sort of like, it's all dark and then they're just kind of happening to accentuate the melodies. So this one is, and then there's also like, most of them have a little grid attached to them. And again, that's why they're not, every note I hit it isn't triggering one, because they're only set up to trigger for the melody of the song it is. But anyway, that one's like pretty good. But once you see it in the show, you'll see like how it's an effective, it's almost like another lighting fixture that is only possible through a computer. What are some other, I think that's basically it. Some of the, oh yeah, then some of them are hooked up actually to the MPC, so I can trigger like text, like it'll say like hey, or I won't blow that song, but like some of the lyrics to the songs. And then one song I actually have, because there's a special guest, R-Dog is on the song, so I have him, because he could, I don't know if he can come to all the gigs, so his part in the song will come up. You know, you can see him there in the corner. Anyway, so I'll just quickly take you guys through how to get this rocking, but in the future, if you are actually building a project like this, feel free to reach out and ask me.
So they're transparent PNG files then, or you said they were black backgrounds, so.
Yeah, so I'll show you, I'm gonna go into Photoshop now and just, like it's super simple. You know, in theory, because I can't draw, it's funny, I can't sing, but I'm singing, and I can't draw, so if you could draw, you could use drawings and like animations, or you could use actual videos or whatever you want, but I'm using basically just like
How are you doing that? Yeah, I'm loving this transition.
Oh. Oh yeah, can we go back to the screen now though? I'm gonna show them Photoshop. Thanks though for that. So I'll just take you. It takes like 5 seconds sort of for me to do a. There's two kinds. There's a still image or an animation, and then we export them as alpha layers, so that they come into Arena transparent. Then they can play over top of each other, or anything. So say we want to make a. When I hit the keyboard, there's a little ball that gets bigger and smaller. We're just gonna like draw a ball, put it in the center. Oh yeah, I'm using like a super old version of Photoshop too. Then we just make another layer, like duplicate it, make it a little bit bigger. Copy that again, and then Command Shift T just enlarges it again by that much. So this is like on the simple end of things, right? So now this is the timeline, which you might not have in like up in Photoshop, but it's in the windows. So then we're gonna. Am I moving too fast here, or you guys got me? So we're gonna make a. I just put the black background on so I could see how it looks on black, but we actually need it to be like this, like translucent. So then, once you have all the layers on the one side, you can you do make frames from layers. I think that's what I did, and then now that's just made a animation, right, in like 2 seconds. So then, I actually want to make it go backwards as well, like so it's getting small and big and then small again, so that when I hit the key, it's gonna grow and then it's gonna get small again, right? So we copy the frames. Maybe I already did that. We're gonna paste them. Wait, what did I do wrong here? Okay, we're gonna copy the frames. We're gonna paste them at the end. So this is basically like a very basic version of like video editing software or whatever. It's just like laying out the frames, super easy. Right. So now the ball goes small to big, and then in export we're gonna render a video. So it's different from like making a video in Premiere, or like making an actual video, because once we bring it into Arena, we can control the speed and anything like that. So we don't need to really worry about that. The one thing you need to worry about is that it is alpha channel, like this, so that it doesn't have any background. It's just like floating in the air, basically.
Evan, can I ask?
Yeah.
What's like the optimal like file size for like a trigger like that?
I'm glad that you asked, because I find, especially because of my computer, the smaller the better. Okay. The smaller it is, the less lag there is between when you hit the key and when you don't. Other things, it doesn't really matter, because like if I'm triggering from the sampler, I can offset it so it's actually triggering before when it wants to play. Okay. But for the keyboard, like this whatever system I'm using, so I did half of 1080, I guess, right? I don't even know if that's a thing, but I'm just like half of whatever, and that seemed good because I still want it to look good, especially because it's on a giant screen. So it's tough. It's a balance. So experiment definitely, and that's why I'll show you too where just using still images is actually pretty good. So we're gonna I should
I have an unrelated creative question.
Yeah.
What would happen if you went into a place and they said you can't use lights?
Well, let me tell you, I did a whole tour with my friend Nick Diamonds, like a 6-week tour. We had a rig where we had a projector and a fog machine and a giant mirror that was like the size of that TV, and the idea was we were firing dots out of the projector that created like laser beams, and then with the fog machine, it looked so awesome. Half the places said that we couldn't use it. So I guess the question is, like, the answer to the question is, when that happens, you either decide to like fight and argue with the people that say you can't use it, or you just don't use it. You know, you're kind of at the mercy of it, but that's why.
So you can for sure split the. It's what I'm saying is it's fairly simple to disconnect the music.
Yeah,
from the
yeah,
lights.
yeah. So that's why I also coming into this project, I built it so there's like 3 stages. There's like no lights, no visuals, just music. There's projections, because if there's a projector there, or like, then that might be easy to use. Then the top tier is lights. So something that I faced when I did the first time I was using these light rigs though is, in theory, you could just go to a club and be like, give me the cable, I'm gonna plug into your light system, and then you can pre-program it. And that's what I thought it would be the most genius thing. You could go on tour, you don't have to bring any lights, you just plug into the lights they have. But nobody would let me, because you have to, which I'll get into, you have to go up onto the lights and set the addresses on them. And they'd be like, no, you can't touch that. So that sort of foiled my whole plan in general. But I think on a certain level, if you're advancing that stuff and you're like, okay, well, if you're booking me for a light show, let's make this happen. So, but yeah, in answer to your question, I over-answered it. But yeah, it can just be like no lights if people don't want them. Which I don't understand why they wouldn't. But
Hey Evan, I think in answering hers though, you answered mine. So can you just go into any place and use their lights?
Yeah, so in theory you can, but you have to, all the lights have to have the same address as the programs you make for them, which is fine because all the lights can be, you can change the address to anyone you want. So as long as they agree to that, you can. So I've done it once at the Kazoo show. I used just the lights that were on the stage, and before my set, I went and changed the addresses for them, and it worked. It was fine. Then change them back at the end. But if they don't match, then you can't. So it's sort of good to think about. But maybe the more people start doing this, then it's like would become more acceptable. I think right now they're just like, don't touch these things. It took us forever to get them going, because it's confusing in a way, like all the way that they interact with each other. So, but if you can reassure them and just be like, no, I know what I'm doing. I took this workshop, like, you know, and I'll change it all. The thing you gotta say is I'll change it all back at the end of the night.
Course,
so, but if you're leaving town, you don't really.
Does that have something to do with? You said there could be 64 at any notes at any time at a given time.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like having 64 signals being sent out.
Yeah, totally. And actually, that's only the limitation of my sampler. But DMX, which I'll get into, it's called DMX 512 because there's actually 512 messages, because they rock like giant like stadium shows with that, but it all comes out of one controller. Like it's all daisy chained, right? So so you could in theory go to like a stadium and be like, okay, where do I plug in, and just stick your XLR cable into there, and then have, or like a huge theater, right? Like they have like the racks of lights and stuff. You would have access to all of those. And then I'll get into that, all the charts and stuff about how that language works in a second. Let me just get through the arena thing. I know. I feel like I wanted to do more than lights just because to cover all the bases, but we'll be there really soon. I promise. anyway, so what am I doing? Saving these things to my desktop just so I can knock it into the thing. Oh yeah, and then I just wanted to show you the other thing is if you're gonna use still images to do the keyboard thing or to rock them in, it's good because you can set the so I can set the position of where they will appear on the screen in my workshop. Man, that didn't do separate layers. Hold on. So say I want the notes to appear, whatever, all these balls from left to right on the screen. Then what we're gonna do, we can just save it, what's it called? It's a script. I think in newer Photoshop it's called export, but we save them, each layer, export layers to files. Then it'll make each layer a separate file and make them a PNG. I'll just bring up and make sure you don't trim them, then it saves the position and you make it a transparency. Then when you bring all those files into Arena, they'll all be laid out as exactly in your Photoshop like creation, right? So you could get really complex with that. If you had like picture, you could have an actual like cartoon that you play. You could play the character on the keyboard, and then you could have the stuff in the background being controlled by like the drums and the bass or whatever, all through the triggers. So I'm just into, for me, Arena, what I like about it is the fusion with the music, you know? So anyway, so then I'll just show you like really quickly basically how this works. You're gonna drag the things over from here and put them into the decks. Then you do this, and then you map. That's where you map it to the notes on the keyboard. So I've already done it, and I won't mess with it now. So then every time this hits, it hits, and then there's two modes, normal and piano. So I set it to piano, so instead of triggering and staying on, when the key's down, it's on, and when the key's off, it's off. And then last thing, so Arena takes the clock from the sampler, so it's always in time, everything's always going in time to the song. Then if I want to make something flash on and off, I think people were talking about a more in-depth Arena workshop's gonna happen, so that's why I'm just sort of like cruising through this, but I just wanted to show you how quickly it works, and how I'm using it. But anyway, then you can animate any of the functions of this whole thing, like the height, the scale, the position, all of this stuff, you can animate so that it goes in time to the music. So basically what I'm using it for is, you can see in the corner there, it's just, all these animations are flashing on and off every beat. So when I'm playing a thing, it sort of gives the illusion that it's moving, but you can also make it move like around on the screen. So anyway, then all I do is I just make one animation, then I just copy it multiple times and move it along the screen. So that's quick crash course on how I made the animations for this. Do you guys have any questions about that? Is it making sense? Sort of. Okay.
I don't know the program well enough.
Okay, so yeah, it's hard for it because I don't want to teach like a one-on-one on Arena right now, but I wanted to touch on it. But essentially, it's like something that any of you could pretty easily get going, like some kind of synchronized visuals, as long as you have like you can put anything into it, and then the clock function is sort of the best because any clip you load in is basically gonna snap to the beat of the music. So it's really good. DJs use it a lot. But I'm using it for this one specific thing, which was more just like a personal project that I wanted to try. I wanted to make it like cartoony. Okay, so
I have a question.
Yeah, please.
Okay, so you make short animations. Say an animation is like 10 frames long.
Yeah.
Does Resolume then think that each frame should be like one beat? Like, how does it import
how does
your
it
animation and decide how fast to play it back?
Yeah, so there's two modes. There's one called timeline in it, which will just play the clip in the time. So if it's like 10 frames and it's 30 frames per second, however that works, then you can just adjust the speed of it. Then the other mode, BPM mode, it does do that. It divides up the frames and then will make that into a bar, right? Or you can set the amount of it. I should show you where that is. So these ones, this is timeline, so it's just playing, and that's that. But then when you switch it to BPM sync, then it becomes I don't know why it wasn't then it divided it up. So now it's each frame it's giving one beat. So each frame will be a bar, or you can change the division, right?
Gotcha.
So yeah, that's that. So I found it useful in different cases, sometimes to depending on the animation. Sometimes it should be more rhythmic, or sometimes I just use timeline mode and adjusted the speed if I wanted to make it faster or slower. Okay, so man, I didn't realize just how long it's been that I was talking about all this stuff other than lights. I was like trying to cover the bases, but now we're there. This is good. So let me tell you about the lights. I should break out the pack to go over. Oh yeah, so DMX Lighting is like that's what the workshop's called, and you know I'm not like an experienced lighting technician or anything. I just sort of like from doing shows and stuff and just like caught whiff of like the idea that all these lights are basically, it's like MIDI, but it's like music but for lights, right? And then I stumbled across something just from looking up. I was like, wait, can I control this with my stuff, you know, like with music? Because normally in clubs, in theaters and everything, they're not controlling the lights with music at all. They're using, like, there's a thing called sound activation, so they're inputting the sound into it, but they're mostly, it's like they're riding it like a mixing board. But then I found this thing. I guess it's not on the screen, but that's okay. You guys can see it. It's called the Decabox Protocol Bridge.
Kind of.
Yeah. Thank you. Anyway, it's just like a box that someone made that it directly translates the language used in these lights, which is called DMX, which is basically the same as the language used in music, but different. So it it's like a translator, right? So without this, you wouldn't have. You can program lights, but I can't tell you about it. Like it. So this is what allows you and me to bring it into your like MIDI system, into your music system. So what it does is it just halves the value of DMX, and so all the values are half, and then each note on the MIDI keyboard is assigned to one of those. So that could be as simple as if say I have how many keys are on this mini keyboard, like let's say 30, even though that's wrong. If I had 30 lights and each one was assigned to a note, I could just play each one and that would be like happening. But it doesn't really work like that, as you'll see. So we should get into some of these supplementary material, if you guys have your little thing. So on the first page, there's just like a chart, which I found. I made my own chart at the end, but it says Decabox, MIDI note, and CC messages. So this just says, basically it helps you figure out which address on the lights applies to which note on the keyboard. And then, so I'm not playing it all on the keyboard actually, but since the sampler uses musical note language, we have to translate that to the lights. So maybe I'm ahead of myself too, because so the lights aren't as simple as just flashing on and off. A bunch of them have like many values. Like the laser is like the position of the laser, the strobing speed, blah blah blah, and those are all in here. And we'll go over each fixture in a second. But the crux of it is that you've got a value that turns a light on and off, and then you usually have another value which in MIDI world is the velocity or the volume. That's how we control that. So it's like the color will be assigned to the velocity. So we can turn the light on and then we can make it green with, or go through the colors with the other values. So I'll just start to show you all of this rather than explain it. But the first thing we need to know is, do you see here there's like the DMX address quick reference chart. So on each one of these light fixtures that we have, which is like, we have like 8 or 9 going, you need to set the address so that it knows that a certain range of notes will apply to that light. And then we do them in order. So we've got like, if you look at the very back, you've got my own notes, and these will be actually the most helpful. So mine are original handwriting, but do you have those? They're in my handwriting.
These autographed?
Yeah. So basically I've set all the so there's 512 channels in total, but I sort of like decided which ones to use. But each light can use up to like 20 channels for one light, but most of them use about 7 to 9. So we've got like these are the notes then I made to go through all those. But let's just get down to it and go through all the fixtures, which is what they call in lighting language all these things. So what I started out with, oh yeah, and then as well I'll tell you that I program all the lights in Logic in the same program I use to make music, because it's basically the same. It's like sequencing that. So I'm gonna bring that open, and so I can show you what all the lights do like in real time while we're talking about them. And then I guess at some point we can drop the lights, the house lights, but we can just leave them on for now. So I actually need to reverse this stuff so that I'm going out of my computer into the sampler instead of because for Arena it comes out of the sampler into the computer to trigger the things. But if I have them both going at once, it creates like a feedback loop. Okay, we're very close. So if Elia, if you could bring up the computer for a minute here. So here's my like template for programming lights. You can do it from a sampler or you can do it from anything. You can do it from your computer, but the messages are pretty complex, so it's best to use a computer program, because as you'll see when I bring up the programs for the other lights, they're like sometimes just for one light to go on, or mostly like the lasers and stuff, because you can control that's the most exciting part. You can control the motion of all the lasers and the stuff in time to the music. But they take like 7 or 8 messages at the same time to do. But so the most basic thing I have right now, which you can't see, it's actually under here. It's called a dimmer pack, and this will be available to any Ed Video members. It's basically just like has plugs in it. They're also pretty cheap to buy. It just has plugs in it, and then each one's assigned to a channel. So there's 4 channels. Then any light, like incandescent light or anything, basically, even stuff that aren't lights, you can control from the DMX. So it's what I started out with, because I didn't have any lights, so I just like set up some lamps on the stage, and then they're rocking. It can control, the only controls you have are the dimming of it and turning it on and off, but that's enough to get it going in time, which I'll show you. So this is where we have to refer to the chart. So I set, it's actually just right at the very bottom of the second page of my handwritten notes, because for this show, all I use this for is it turns a light when I sing that goes on my face, and then in one song I have a special light that I swing around. So you can see at the bottom, dimmer pack DMX 25. That means I set it to channel 25 based on my own system that I created, because I have a certain amount of light, so I just started at the reason I started at 25 is because some notes are like super low, like C -0 or whatever, so they're almost too low to, like, you can hit them on the sequencer, but you can't hit them on any keyboard. So I started there. So then if you see, oh, sorry, I have to set the sampler to go to DMX. So out of the sampler sends out on MIDI channel 2, just so that it's not going to any of this stuff, it's just going to this box and then to all the lights. So there we go. If you can see, I made a note there, and that's C0, and that's assigned to that light. And then here, so that's where I hit the note. And then this is the value. So that's the in this case, that's the brightness. And then.
Sorry, how did you assign?
So the value is attached to. It's called velocity, which in MIDI language is actually, it's like volume, right? So most programmers will have like a separate controller lane like this. I don't know which one you're using or what it, like, I don't really use Ableton, but I assume that you can program the velocity as well. If I had a keyboard, this one isn't sensitive to velocity. The harder you play the keyboard, the louder the brighter it would be. But as you'll see as we go through the fixtures, that's not always the case, because some of the fixtures are like each velocity is a different pattern or a different color. So anyway, so yeah, this one's the simplest, most basic. So let's see what that looks like, we just you know, now you can see that's flashing every time that one of those blobs is going, right? So that's sort of the most basic function of this whole system.
Sorry, Evan,
to start with.
how
Yeah.
did you assign it to that, like, with the note? That's
Okay. No, that's a good question. So, I set it to channel D. So in each note equals one channel on DMX. So start at 0. That's note 0 on a keyboard. So that's what this first chart says. It tells you sort of what note that actually is. What note? Sorry, it's right here. It says deca box, and that just tells you what note on the keyboard is what actual note number. So if they're just calling it like note number 0. So anyway, I set this to DMX channel 25, but there's 4 fixtures on it. So I'm using note 25, which you can see there, or sorry, note 24 is C0, if that makes any sense at all on this. Are you guys seeing this little chart? So that's how you see here, I have C0.
I'm sorry if I'm not getting it, but is that middle C?
No, middle C is much higher. Middle C is C5. So it's just like the way that so the first note in MIDI is actually -2, which middle C is C5 on a piano keyboard, and then they just keep going down and down until you're actually negative. So -2 is actually C-2 is actually 2 octaves below a full piano. But when they made MIDI, they made that note in case like you would have the lowest note ever. So yeah, so if you wanted to do this in the range of a piano, I would set the DMX address on that to 84, would put it at C5. So then it's right in the middle of the keyboard, this light's going off. But since I'm not actually playing any of these lights on the keyboard, I'm triggering them from the sampler, it's kind of arbitrary what the note could actually be, because it's more like rhythm than music. So, but that, anyway, if that makes sense, that's why it is, that's why I arrived at, in my notes, using that as C0 from this chart, which told me DMX, code 24 is C0. And then we have, if we move up, since I know this fixture has 4 things. It starts at 24. I keep saying 25, but I think it's 24. It has 4 things, right? It can control 4 lights. And then I put this one in the 4th slot. So if I move up 4 notes, then that controls that one. So that's how I know. A lot of times I did it just hit and miss. I was like, what the hell is like going on? And I would just slide these notes up the keyboard until it triggered the light that I wanted, you know? So I'm not like, I didn't really plot this out that good, but this sort of chart I made was based on like days of just like furious like experimenting to try to figure out what controlled what. So I'll run through the other fixtures. So that is the dimmer pack, the one that I actually, that's one I own but that I didn't use very much. Then next, let's go to this LED driver, which is new, and I'm so excited about this because you guys can't see it, but maybe at intermission take a look. It's basically like the same as that box. It's a box, and then you can plug in all these LED strips that you would get like for your bedroom or whatever, you know, like consumer grade. They're pretty cheap, and it can drive, and they can attach together, so we can drive like tons of them. This one has 8 different channels, and then it allows me to control them. And this is the first time I've got these going, but the potential to use these for live performances is really good because they're really portable. Like they can roll up, they drive, like you could drive really long lengths of them, they're cheap. Let me show you that. So these are assigned to the first one. So DMX channel 100. I just went like arbitrary 100 and then found the notes from there. This is on like the second last page of my personal notes. So then you'll see there on the side I have the notes, which are at the very top end of the keyboard. So do you see that there? So this way, the way that it's laid out is kind of weird. It's just like red, green, and blue, or each one has a separate message for red, green, and blue. You can set the brightness of them, but it doesn't really matter, like, because they're just kind of like they don't look good when they're dim. So anyway, so here is red, and then it actually skips a note, which is strange. Green, blue, then there's a blank one that would be for white, but then you can do any combination of these, right? To make red, green, and blue makes white, right? Or ish. And or
So you do purple with blue and red.
yeah, exactly. So I can, with those combinations, make any color on these strips, and then there's 4 strips. So we go up to the next one, here, and then oh yeah. So if you get what I'm doing here, these blobs here are like, this is the time of the song. This is synced up to the sampler, and then this controls the length that they go for, that the light flashes on for, and then this is the beat that it goes on. So I'm just gonna whip a simple sequence together to show you that function. So I kind of memorize these from doing it, but I'm sort of just like moving, like I'm just moving the notes around till I see like what flashes on or doesn't. But anyway, this is super easy, and this is like kind of like really effective for like a DIY-ish light. Now you can see, maybe I should make it faster for the effect. Now we're getting them, and I'll show you the programs I've made too soon. So
who's setting these up at home for your Halloween display?
yeah. So Jillian, while you're up, do you mind just hitting the light behind you? Then you can see the effect of that, right? The sideways motion in time to the music. So just like that, and then you can make them all flash at once or whatever you want. Anyway, so that's if you could turn the lights back on, that was good. Thanks. So does that fixture make sense? Like it's like hacking your home strip lighting, or I guess there's any LED stuff you could plug in. It's just like the bare wires you stick into it. And I'll make this unit available to any Ed Video members who want to use it for projects as well. But it turned out, like in the show, it looks really good. It's basically just like, looks like it's moving, kind of. Like it's like a fan waving back and forth. But you could, it's up to your imagination. You could like wrap your whole rig up in it and have it turn on to the beat or whatever.
Yeah,
like
they're nice
that.
because they're flexible, so you can
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's
put
super.
shapes and everything.
It's a porthole into an amazing world of light. So now let's. Oh yeah. So then these bars are just like your standard bar that you would rent for your birthday party or whatever. Your like little gig that you're doing. Well, my birthday party. You know, they're like the most like standard like light thing now, and especially since they switched to LEDs, like the price of them has come down a lot, and they're like super bright. And I'm using these in the show mostly I follow the melody of like the bass lines and stuff with them. So I program them to. It's funny though because you can't actually program them just spit out the notes of the bass line because they'll never line up with the actual code that's supposed to be the light. So I just keep the rhythm and then apply the notes to them. So this is bars. So I've got one is set to the left one is set to DMX channel 35 and the other one's set to 50, and then there's different there's different DMX modes like on each light. So there's like basic ones and there's more complicated ones, but I set this one to like only have control over the flashing and the brightness and then the color. There's one that can change the color. So we're at let's see, C1 I think should turn on, oh yeah, that one there. Then next note up turns on that one. Next note up turns on that one. And so there, we have like a chord, right? There. All of them. Then can turn, then so when you alternate them, they're kind of like running across. And then what I'll do sort of is copy this and then bring it up. I sort of set it up so that the next octave almost is the other bars. So they're like duplicated now. But then if I wanted to reverse them, which you kind of do, like so they're mirrored, then I would just move, switch the positions, right? So they're like that. Is that working? Yeah, so they're like a mirrored going now, right? So you can do anything like that, and then, so then changing the colors is each note above, changes the color. So you actually have to, this is the first instance where we get into sending two messages at once. How should I do this? Which gets kind of messy because the different things like sort of go on top of each other. But let me try to, here what I'll do is I'll send out one long light and then change the color over time to show you that. So this is going to, and I don't honestly know what value is what color, I just kind of move it around. So this is where the velocity is controlling the color instead of in all the ones so far it's just been doing the brightness, but it's the it's gonna change the color. So right, sorry, it's got to be on the immediate note above. So it's changing color, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, there. So if you spend enough time, like I'm not been really picky about the color, but if you spend enough time with it, you can like detailedly set the color for each thing. But you get that how it has to be, the one message is turning it on and off, and then the other one is changing the color. So I didn't actually mess around with that a lot on these bars because I was trying to not use too many messages. So I only changed color a few times. Anyway, those are the bars. Do they make sense? They're sort of like the most easily rentable thing from Long and McQuaid, and you have 8 different lights if you get 2 of them, and you can make you can easily, the same way as you're sequencing patterns on like music patterns, you can make them like move back and forth pretty easily. Okay, so what trying to think what other things next. Let's get to the moonflowers. So these are, I don't know why they're called moonflowers, I guess because they look like that when they're on, but one of them is Lenny's, that's right in front of here. That's called the Decker Mini Laser or something. And then up behind you guys is the Tracker 2 up there. So both these things are sort of like designed to provide like a multiple amount of lights, they're sort of like party lights, I guess, right? Oh yeah, and they were set up at your show, so you saw the function of them, and they look so good with haze. So both of them have two modes. There's lasers, and then there's LEDs. So the lasers are kind of like are only red and green, and they're like really thin sort of lasers that spray out and have patterns that move. And then the LEDs are like well, I guess I should be showing you. It's crazy to just describe the lights. So let's check out the mini decker first. Again, referring to like all the other stuff is important information. It has all the like DMX codes and stuff, but these notes, this is really sort of like the map that I made for this setup. So we can see mini decker laser set to DMX channel 90. And then these are the notes. So on this one, we can control the patterns and the colors, but the best part is we can control the motion of the motor. Not very well, like not detailed, but enough so we can get the stuff rocking in time to the music. And we'll, oh, thank you. You noticed I was running out of candies. So, where do we start? So, F sharp 5. Is it going? Yeah. Okay, so that is, controls the LED, function. So let's just set a pattern there. Just flashing on and off, right? Then, with the velocity, this is gonna run through this sort of like range of different colored patterns, which are kind of, I think, like it's not included in the manual. It just says like different patterns. So I just had to go through them and find ones like, you know, they're just different combinations of colors. So we got red, we've got whatever, 3, and this looks kind of like boring now, but once you get the haze going, it you see the beams in the haze. So that's what's so good about this. Then all this other stuff, we've got there's like strobes and stuff, but if you're controlling the rhythm, you kind of don't need to mess with the strobes because you can you're making it flash with the rhythm. But I'll show you the motor, which is crazy. It's on the Moonflower, it's sort of like you're just controlling the speed of it, but if you turn it on and off, let's see. Oh yeah, see? Now it's moving, and it's sort of wiggling, and you can see what I did. I just made I made it start and stop to wiggle halfway off the beat. Or we can experiment, right, with like other beats. Then I know there's no music going now, but you'll see all this to the music later. But anyway, this is how we're able to not go from just having sort of like a randomly moving like party light to having it like snap into time, which is like like it looks really good once it's going. But that's basically it. The other one, the tracker, like I won't show you both of them because they're sort of the same light but different. It has a function for counterclockwise and clockwise, so you can make it like go in one direction and then make it turn back, and then it does sort of more like a full rotation. Maybe I'll actually bring it up to that. Stinger, sorry, I was calling it tracker. They all have, remember when we were at Long and McQuaid, the guy was like, they all have energy drink names. Yes. All the lights. So this is the Stinger. So we set, oh yeah, so then here you see how you have a bunch of different messages stacked up to make what you want. It's not just like on and off. We have to have like the one for the rotation, one for the color, blah blah blah. It can get very you know, it gets like kind of deep that way. But also like you know, I had like a week to do this, which seems like a lot, but I kind of, I could have gone deeper. The programs I made are pretty basic. Okay, so that is behind you, the Stinger, did we call it? Stinger 2. So, let's get it. I'm just gonna actually send one, wait, the Moonflower mini Decker was still on. Okay. So yeah, this is blasting out. Now let's I'll show you the just quickly the rotation of it. So we set that moving. It kind of was a little bit. Oh yeah, because that's so in this case the velocity controls the speed. And the charts, the manuals that come with this tell you all those functions. So sometimes they're hard to get going. Oh yeah, so it's swinging around. So if you look behind you, you can see like the paddle inside that is kind of moving, so it's going around. So then you can you know, you trigger it to do that on every beat, and then now you've got it like wiggling in time, like a pinwheel going in time. Okay, so the last fixture is the laser, the tri-laser, which I didn't know anything about lasers, and when we were at Long and McQuaid, we were like, well, what kind of fixtures can rent? They're like, well, do you want the tri-laser? And this thing like blows my mind. I can't believe it. And then it took a long time to harness it, but I'm able to control the movements of the lasers, and it's like the best because you can basically it's like animating. It's like animating a thing. So I'm actually gonna show you the program that I already made for this one because it's a bit more complex. So I'll go to this song actually that's loaded up, and it doesn't have much laser part, but there's so oh yeah, watch out, you guys are like almost right in the laser's path, so just you can look at the floor, but try not to look, not try, but just don't look into the laser. That's why we have the light shields. But you'll see it on the floor, the pattern of this laser. Oh, it's not the right song playing. But did you guys see it? It's way more effective in the dark and way more effective with Fog Machine that will get going, but try to find a place where it's like that's like a hilarious laser sound. Okay. So do you guys see that? So then I'll kind of show you what's going on there, and then because that's a pretty simple pattern. So this one, oh, can you bring back up the computer, please? So this one is turning that on and off, laser on and off. Then this one is setting the pattern between circle and a line. So every other beat it is doing a circle or a line. And then these ones here are the X and Y coordinates. So this is kind of crazy, like when you change the value or the velocity of these, it actually is plotted on the map. So in the middle is like when they're in the middle, and then when you make them actually, it's not actually like higher and lower. It's like the middle, and then the lower values are below the middle. And then these are higher. So this is X and Y. Then we can actually move the position of that. Do you see how that they spread out, right? So they move. So it's kind of crazy to do with this. Like, I imagine it'd be really easy with like a board or something to like have those on faders, but it's cool to do it in the beat because now we can make this thing from Long and McQuaid like $30, make it like totally harnessed and controlled by the music. And once I didn't understand either that I was like, wow, these are cool patterns on the floor, but the lasers are all about the fog, so we'll get that going, but it's all about like seeing the beams in the air, and they're like moving to the music. It's like insane. It's so good. So
can I quickly just
yeah.
jump in for a second?
Yeah,
We've
of
been going
course.
for a little while, so I want to make sure. I don't know when we have our intermission planned for.
Soon.
But I just want to check in to make sure, because I don't know if anyone needs a washroom break.
Oh yeah,
or
totally.
anything like that.
I just,
like,
lost
keep
track
in
of
mind.
time. Good.
So
Yeah, let's
we're still good.
Yeah, I think we're like almost at the. This was like the last fixture. So
Amazing. Okay,
thank you though. So we
Sorry,
can
I just wanted to check in.
No, please, please. So why don't we because that was the last fixture, and if you guys understand the principles of the programming in Logic, I feel like there's some piece of information missing here.
Yeah,
But
I have a question.
yeah.
So say I wanted to go to Long and McQuaid tomorrow and rent like one of these bars and start programming it.
Yeah.
You mentioned something about assigning addresses.
Yeah.
How would I actually get it going when I first get it?
Okay, so the main thing is you need this, which is converts the MIDI to DMX.
Can
so
you get that from LNM?
No, you can get it from me or from Ed Video because it's gonna be available, or you could order it online. It's about like $250. So otherwise, you can still program lights, but you can't use them with MIDI. And then, other than that, there's these things called dip switches on the back, and there's a guide in here. So you just have to like set it to the channels you want, and with the guide, and then it's like within the range of your keyboard or of notes. So yeah, so you're that's the one thing. It's like you need this one piece of gear. So that's why I'm making it available, because it's kind of whack to do a workshop on just, without that, right? But I'm sure there are other ways to program lights with your computer. You can get dongles that go out to DMX, but I don't know about them. This is like my system. So let's take an intermission, then I'll sort of set up for the show, and then we can think about if there's anything like I missed, and then I'll give the safety instructions, and then we'll do the show. Does that make sense? Because it has, I just looked at the time and I couldn't believe how it went by. I was like, how am I gonna fill up all this time? But then I feel like I only talked about the actual lights for like 10 minutes. But so please, if there's anything missing about it, please ask me. Please ask me. Think about it during intermission. Go to the bathroom, hit your vape, got some cake.
Is that the vocoder?
No, a vape if you have one, or the vocoder. And then I'll like set up, because I totally messed up all this stuff, and then we just have to. We're basically ready to go, except just take the feed from Arena into the projector. Then we're gonna go dark. Like, this room is gonna be blacked out completely, and only the lights will be on. It's crazy. Like, it's gonna be experience.
Thank you so much.
Oh, no problem. Thanks. I hope I was able to explain things okay. It's like so much and such a specific thing, but that's why I encourage you to ask me about anything, and not only just here today, but in the future, get my information. And if it's something you want to get into, then it makes more sense to just like go over it. But yeah, that's for you, the guys, the just or anybody. I mean, just borrow this from Ed Video and try it out at least before you buy one. But it's not hard to like. I just ordered it. It's a small company that just kind of makes this one thing and then one other thing that converts something else, and that's what they do. I just kind of stumbled across it. I've never seen it before, but so that'll do you. Okay.
Should we move chairs?
Yeah. We'll clear the chairs, clear the air.
This is Underground Rock and Roll Armageddon, broadcasting to you live from the wastelands of Guelph and the surrounding area in the apocalypse after the bombs have fallen, after the zombies have come and gone. We're the last of the last. We're the only final stand of the rock and roll nation. Crank her up to 11, rip the knob off, throw it out the window. There's gonna be a snowstorm blowing in tonight. From the shed to the sled. From the shed to the sled. From the shed sled. Sled. Max. Some of my ice. And now, ladies and gentlemen, Commander Hailstone! We have the radio station frozen right here on 93.3 because that's how cool this new album is. It is just straight up cool. Maximum ice!
was up all night, staring at the window, lost in the city light. I was thinking, how nice. I was feeling so grateful, grateful for my place in life. And if I died today, that would be okay, because my body would lay rotting in my favorite place, in my condo, upset, in my condo. Oh my God, I'm so blessed, in my condo. I'm high in my condo. Yeah, I'm living my best life. I wanna watch other people below, but I don't wanna know what they're saying. Wanna get up, wanna get so high, gotta ride that elevator. Wanna do good, wanna change the world, gonna do some meditating. Wanna it all in my condo. In my, I'm blessed in my condo. In my, I'm blessed. You were down there, out in the cold, looking for some change, trying to find some place to go. I couldn't help ya, no time, but I'll always think a little bit about you in the back of my mind. I wanna watch other people below, but I don't wanna know what they're saying. Wanna get up, wanna get so high, gotta ride that elevator. Wanna do good, wanna change the world, gonna do some meditating. Wanna it all. And if I died today, that would be okay, because my body would lay rotting in my favorite place. In my condo, I'm sad. In my condo, oh my God, I'm so blessed. In my condo, I'm high. In my condo, yeah, I'm living my best life. let's go for a ride. Spinning, spinning, hold on tight. I can't wait for the ice to form again. On the empty parking lot. Rotate, spin the wheel, then hit the brakes. Rotate, spin the wheel, then hit the brakes. Rotate. Roller coaster, dip and dive, slip and slide. Around the world, pole to pole, lose control. Rotate, spin the wheel, then hit the brakes. 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 For the ice to form again. All around my hailstone heart. choir as it twists and turns. Try to hold on until it starts to burn. Dust myself up and start again. I'm not giving up, even if it blows my brain. I'll just go on and on. I'm not giving up yet, though there's a long, long way to go. I'm not giving up yet, and the only way I know is the way ahead. Not giving up yet, not giving up yet. I'm not giving up yet. I'm not giving up yet, not giving up yet, not giving up yet. I'm not cast away, swept aside. I'm lost at sea, been pulled out with the tide in the distance. I see the light. I'm not giving up. No, not without a fight. I'm not giving up yet, though there's a long, long way to go. I'm not giving up yet, and the only way I know is the way ahead. Not giving up yet, not giving up yet. I'm not giving up yet. I'm not giving up yet, not giving up yet, not giving up yet. I'm not giving up yet. I'm not giving up yet, not giving up yet, not giving up yet. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Not giving up yet, not giving up yet. took a walk by the banks of Dune. The birds were singing the strangest tune. The wind, a warm morning, a call of tune. All my hopes, all my dreams, I can't sit back and watch it slide. Soon I will be dancing on the tops of rolling hills from the lowlands. I will rise. I took a bath late in the day. The mirror fogged, the water gray. All my failures, all my fears, I watch them swirling down the drain. Soon I will be swimming in the crystal mountain stream from the lowlands. I'll rise again. Oh, you better believe it. This whole world wasn't for just for you. Oh, wish you could see it. The way the smoke is rising just beyond the hills. In the lowlands, in the lowlands, dreaming of the mountain dew. In the lowlands, in the lowlands, I'll climb my way back home to you. Take me out if I hit the wall. Gonna break it down, and the drummers will control me, and the puppets will play from the top of the mountain. We're gonna rise again if I get in a hole. Gonna take me out if I hit a wall. Gonna break it down, and the drummers will control me, and the puppets will play from the top of the mountain. We're gonna rise again. In the lowlands, in the lowlands, dreaming of the mountain too. In the lowlands. through the hole in the wall. I want to see what I can see. And when I look through the hole in the wall, will someone be looking back at me? Uh-oh, looks like we're surrounded, trapped